Make it your own thing. That's one of those. It's something that gets said a lot, and it almost is like a something that you say that it's sufficiently vague as to not elicit a particular question that could expose the weakness in the argument, or sufficiently vague to do that, but seemingly meaningful.
Yeah.
In the way that it gets, in the way that it gets used. The whole make it your own thing. The reason that you don't hear me say that very often is that by virtue of you being you, anything you play is your.
See, that's
yours.
that's why
Okay?
that's why I was confused by that.
Okay.
That statement.
So yeah, what you play is yours. How you came about it, how it eventually started to manifest, all of that is a known process.
Yeah.
We all know that there's a struggle with that process. I talked a little bit about that today. The whole thing about Charlie Parker saying, learn everything that you can and forget it all.
Yeah.
What that actually means, that it's not some sort of trivial stuff that he was, it's actually quite profound. It's actually quite profound what it was that he was suggesting. As his playing tends to be as densely populated, there's so much nutrients in what he plays and so much stuff in what it is. That statement, I think, is a good, sort of verbal version of his music, and what, the sort of magnitude of, what's being expressed with that simple statement. Making something your own. Now, I mean, if all you're doing is just playing something that you practiced, like, you work out a solo, okay, now it's my time to play the solo, or you transcribe someone else and all you do is just play that transcription when you're in a solo situation. Obviously, there's issues with that. There is an issue of disguising what it is that you're doing. And we talked a little bit about this, about using approach notes and using, black aesthetic, and blue notes, bending, slurring, sliding of notes, polyrhythm, and the like, as a way to, bring it home, as it were, to make what it is that you're playing seem to have a stronger connection with common knowledge, with the what's in the ether, the body of musical knowledge, the common practice music, the vernacular, what Joe on the street understands, to be able to relate that way. is very important. But again, that has little to do with making something your own. That's actually quite deliberately learning, the common practice so well as to be able to utilize it at your own desire. To be able to twist it and turn it and make it do whatever you want.
Yeah.
So the way I think about it is the way to stop sounding like a pattern player is by practicing more patterns.
Yeah.
Okay, so now that's not the conventional wisdom, right? The conventional wisdom is, get away from that, play more melodically. Of course, melodies are patterns too,
Yeah.
and they correspond to the chords in a particular way, and the form is a pattern. And the way that we think is in patterns. Our personalities are developed, are based on patterns. The reason that we recognize anybody or know anybody is based on patterns that they exhibit, expressions that they use, figures of speech that they tend to use, pacing, the amount of time it takes them to collect their thoughts to say something. There's a number of ways. The rhythm that they speak in, all of this stuff is patterns, and those patterns identify whoever it is that uses those patterns as being them.
Yeah.
Because personality is based on pattern. Everything is based on pattern. The world is based on patterns. Gravity has a particular effect on the earth.
Yeah.
The size of the earth, the mass that the earth has, the gravitational pull that it has a particular effect on the inhabitants of the earth, and you see this in sports, right? So if you go to different cities that are different elevations, if you haven't been spending time playing there, it'll have a different effect on you than it'll have of the folks that live there.
Yeah.
Right? So all of this stuff has a uniform sort of effect on us. Okay, now having said all that, okay, and then of course, the whole thing about patterns, again, the way to not sound like a pattern player is by practicing more patterns.
Yeah.
So
you have
what?
more of a less of a limited vocabulary, I guess.
That's right.
Yeah.
So so the issue, what exposes someone as sounding pattern oriented, is that they don't know something well enough to be able to say anything they want to say on it.
Yeah.
So they're limited to very, really specific, rigid things that they have to do.
Yeah.
So if you learn a bunch of patterns and you learn them forward and backwards and you make modifications to them and you learn all of those forwards and backwards, you'll get to a point where what it is that you're playing is not going to sound like any particular thing because you have such control of it.
Yeah.
To the extent that you don't have control, it will manifest as a sort of contrived pattern. To the extent that you have total control of it, it'll just sound like whatever the story, whatever the picture that you're trying to paint. The focus goes on the painting, on the object, that you're developing, the message that you're presenting. That it goes to that, and it goes away from the details associated with creating that.